everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, this case, of course, we're referring to the Suitcase murder case, the Sarah Boone. It's taken some unexpected twists. Well, maybe not so unexpected. But in a case where the evidence is just so strong, to have the defendant testify is it's unusual, but it seems in this case there could be no other choice. And I also believe that Sarah Boone is pulling the strings on this case. Her attorneys aren't. Her attorneys are doing what she tells them to do. And this could be a huge mistake, or it could be a huge plus to her defense. Hard to determine, but it's always risky to have the defendant testify. And the facts and circumstances behind this, just they're talking about domestic violence. They're talking about self-defense. Can anyone believe that playing a game of hide and seek while drunk can turn into self-defense? And marry that with the battered woman syndrome, and that's pretty much what her attorneys are coming up with. That is her defense. A battered woman syndrome, self-defense. Sort of hard to believe, right? That's going to be the way they're going to go with this case. But that we're going to see her testify. She's going to testify as soon as court starts up today. Sort of difficult to believe. And we keep going back to that video, and we'll show it again, of George begging for his life. Sarah, let me out. I can't breathe. And that she just disregards it. That's hard to watch. And then it's hard to believe, if you're a juror, that she was in more danger than he was. Well, he lost his life. So obviously he was in more danger than she was. So these are the things that a jury will have to look at, that they've already been looking at, and to make a determination. So folks, hold on to your seats, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, your service dog. You're about to enter true crime. From a police perspective, you're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Folks, before we proceed with the Sarah Boone case, first, a word from our sponsor. Basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back, from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds in everything from football, Major League Baseball playoffs, National Hockey League, to political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Joining me today, and I'm so happy he was able to at the last minute, is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Michael Geary. Welcome,
hey,
Mike.
Bill, good to see you. Good afternoon.
You know, Mike, it's sort of, we discussed this earlier. It's sort of interesting that she has chosen to take the stand, but it's consistent with her personality, with who she is. that she's going to take the stand on her own behalf. And I mean, we've watched the detective interview interrogation of her, which was nearly 5 years ago, and she wasn't too good in giving a defense to what she did. It wasn't very believable. So what's going to make her believable now, Mike, as she goes on the stand?
That's a great question. It's really difficult because they've already seen her official interview with the police that was recorded, like you said, 5 years ago. That was a 2-hour-long interview with a male officer, a male detective, and a female detective. She was scattered all over the place, telling about how much she loved him, how much he had helped improve his life and his drinking, how he'd always relapse, how he would come after her, how she'd have to hide upstairs and pretend to be sleeping. It was all over the place. It was all an accident, and it was hard to believe. I mean, it would have been not so bad, but once you look at the video, then you're like, wait a second, the two don't jive. What she said, and then the video taken like 24, 48 hours earlier, where he's begging, it doesn't seem to match. Without that video, she may have gotten away with it, but she's supremely confident in that she can maybe perhaps reason her way out of this with the cooperation of the jurors. She thinks she might be able to get over. She's put herself into this corner where she actually has to testify. There's no way she could even hope for any sort of mercy or acquittal, except if she does it herself. She's supremely confident in herself. If I were her, I wouldn't be that confident. If I'm her attorney, I wouldn't be that confident. She's got an uphill road right now. She's got to make the case. She's got to make it today. This is the do or die moment for her in this case.
Mike, one of the things is that we all have to take it from, she was offered manslaughter first degree. This case did not have to go to trial. No one thinks she's going to just beat the case outright. Oh, we found you not guilty. I don't think there's a person out there,
right,
or a juror out there, or the judge, or anyone in the court, even her defense attorneys. I don't think they expect her to beat this case. She's going to get convicted of something. I would be shocked if she gets convicted of manslaughter and not murder too. But that's the risk she's taking. And when she chose not to take the plea, the guilty plea, in a plea bargain, which that's the key word, bargain, a plea bargain, she turned it down. She rolled the dice because she would only have to have served maybe another 4 or 5 years in prison. Whereas now she has to serve at least 22 and a half years upon conviction. Your thoughts with that?
That's a huge gamble. It's a foolish gamble. One in the hand is worth two in the bush. She had that plea bargain in her hand. That offer was good. She was going to get a light sentence, probably the lightest possible sentence that they could give someone under Florida law. And instead of going for it and saying, okay, I'll take it. I'm not dumb. I'll take it. This is a gift. It's a bargain. She's rolling the dice. She's betting the entire house on this one roll of the dice. That's a bad position to be in. She's got no safety harness under her. This is going to be a free fall for her. She's got to make it. This is her one chance to do it. I don't think she can do it because if she messes up, she gets stripped up on the stand, she doesn't sound convincing, it's all over for her. It's all over.
Wow. I want to play this from earlier in the court case, explaining the law.
The defense was saying has not been met. They were saying that, yes, okay, first of all, they did stipulate to the death of the victim, George Torres. The argument from the defense was that George voluntarily entered the suitcase. And so they say that does not show that the act was imminently dangerous, that being the second element of that second-degree murder charge. And then the third element being of depraved mind, regardless of human life. They say that the state failed to show that, saying that suffering, that the state proving that George suffered inside that suitcase is not hatred, is not ill will. And we heard in the interrogation video from Sarah Boone talking about her specifically saying she did not have ill will toward George, that they had had a good day, all of those things that we heard in that interrogation video yesterday afternoon. They're basically saying the state never proved that she had hatred or ill will toward him. And that kind of thing. So that is what their argument was, in that these elements were not met by the prosecution, and so this should be nothing more than a manslaughter charge, and this should be a judgment of acquittal. The judge obviously very quickly denying that motion. I will go ahead and play for you, though, a portion of that argument the that the defense rather was making as to why they believe that should have been done. And so let me get that ready for you here, and listen in as the defense kind of makes that argument. And then as soon as things begin, we will go ahead and dump out of that and make sure we get you back in court. But let's go ahead in the meantime, while we're waiting, and listen into this.
Yeah, at this time, the defense would move for a judgment acquittal. I'm going to start with just a real quick couple of comments, Your Honor. We know that the AOA motions have become essentially pro forma, which may be why I've been assigned this responsibility today. But in this instance, I want to make an argument that I think has some merit. I've been paying close attention to the testimony in this case, and I want to point a couple things out. First of all, we know that the court has essentially assumed the role and is assigned the role of becoming a gatekeeper in this matter. We know from the testimony that's been presented in this matter that not only did law enforcement, but also the Office of the State Attorney had knowledge of these parties prior to the event having occurred. And despite that, the state has proceeded with this prosecution based upon criminal information as opposed to having taken it to the grand jury. That kind of places the court in a special position to evaluate the nature of the evidence that's been presented. I want to focus on the second-degree murder allegation. And one thing that occurred to me while watching the evidence as it was presented, watching the videos, particularly the interrogation, was part of the dialogue between Ms. Boone as well as Detective Scott Lowen at the end of the interrogation. And I'm going to paraphrase. I apologize. I should have written this down verbatim. I did not. But she's advised that she is being placed under arrest. And her response is, "Why are you doing this?" The detective's response to Ms. Boone is, "Because George is dead."
I'm sorry?
Because George is dead. That's not enough. It's not enough to support a second-degree murder, prosecution, conviction, or should it even be enough to allow this matter to go to the jury? Now, there are three elements of the second-degree murder information. The first is that the victim is dead, that Mr. Torres is dead. We stipulated to his identity. There has been no argument to the fact or the idea that he died in this incident. However, the state also has to show that it was caused by a criminal act and that the act was imminently dangerous and demonstrated a depraved mind. Now, the fact that it was imminently dangerous, I think, is belied by the fact that Jorge Torres voluntarily entered the suitcase, albeit under the influence of alcohol. But the perception of dangerousness that's attributable to the victim, apparently he did not perceive it to be a dangerous or an imminently dangerous situation in having entered the suitcase, possibly because of the influence of alcohol on his capacity to make decisions.
I think I'm going to try to go to the live feed right now in regards to the case. I believe it is. I think the case. Let me see if it started. I think it. See here.
What's that?
I think the case is they're in court now. Let me go to
Okay.
the live feed. Okay. I'm not sure they're
I can't breathe. And then she flips a switch, gets angry because it reminds her of all the times before where she is asserting that the decedent made her feel like she couldn't breathe. And then that's when she starts beating and shuffling the suitcase so much that it flips over and hitting him with the bat. We've covered this ground. Aggravated assault, aggravated battery, 2 independent forcible felonies. She's committing false imprisonment. She is the initial aggressor after there being no overt act. She can't start it and then say, well, I'm in fear of retaliation, because that's what her testimony was, is once I started doing these things, once I wouldn't let him out of the suitcase, I was afraid he would come out and harm me or kill me. Well, Judge, if I pull a gun on you and I say, give me everything you own on you right now, and then you in turn pull a gun on me and say, bam, 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 and shoot and kill me, and I shoot, let me strike that. You pull a gun on me to defend yourself, and then I shoot and kill you. I can't assert self-defense. I can't say, well, Judge Kranick pulled a gun on me and I was in fear of death, because I was the initial aggressor. I was committing a forcible felony. That's the facts of this case here, according to her previous testimony. And the state concedes if she wants to change her testimony again, that's one thing, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But if she testifies as she previously has, the court has already ruled there's no overt act, and you've read the transcripts. You know what she has said.
Judge, she hasn't testified. She hasn't testified. Dr. Harper's testified. Dr. Warner's testified.
They have not testified. They have given depositions.
Well, given depositions, but she hasn't testified about the act in question. She hasn't testified about the event in question. She had consultations and evaluations by Dr. Harper. Well, Dr. Warner can say what was said during the evaluation. Again, both of those were not reported. There may be disputes. I disagree with his characterization of that assessment, but it's up to Sarah to tell the truth here today. She's under oath. He's under oath today. He's got an obligation to tell the truth. If he thinks she's made prior inconsistent statements, it's up to him to impeach her with those inconsistent statements.
To the extent that you are requesting permission to go into presumably and seemingly prior bad acts, vis-a-vis, he got the wine, and I know what happens when he gets it, and everything that follows from that. Those are bad acts. That is character. And the Florida Supreme Court has provided guidance and circumstances, specifically in Holland, on what needs to be done. You're attempting to provide information that the defendant was apprehensive of the victim at the time of the homicide by virtue of the wine, etc., as you've proffered. That's bad character evidence that you're going to be bringing in. Historic bad character evidence. This is what happens when he drinks. This is what happens when I don't placate him. This is the situation that I find myself in, which inevitably may dovetail into prior incidents of abuse. That's all prohibited character under 9404. And the carve out for that is if a overt act is established. It's not a subjective standard. It's an objective standard. The jury instruction 3.6F identifies it being an objective standard, and the Akendo case specifically tells us that it's an objective standard. In Akendo, the second DCA in 2023 stated the conduct of a person acting in self-defense is measured by an objective standard, but the standard must be applied to the facts and circumstances as they appeared at the time of the altercation to the one acting in self-defense. I'm going to rely on Holland. Holland is the law of the land. It is what the Supreme Court has told us to utilize. That's what I will be relying on. The overt act has to be established.
Ms. Boone, do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. Anything else?
We cannot talk about any prior bad acts or anything of that nature until we talk about the actual event, the attack. Correct? You understand?
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, State?
Okay.
Defense, anything else, sir? All right, let's go ahead and stand and bring in our jury.
The jury's being brought in, and Sarah Boone is getting ready to testify. This is what everyone is
Good.
waiting for. What can she
Yeah.
possibly say that will
It's going to be
convince
difficult.
the jury
It's
of
gonna be very difficult.
innocence?
Yeah, she's going to have to show to the jury that she was really scared because he did something that evening that was similar to something that he did prior to that evening and made her fearful that he was going to do it again. So that's what the judge was saying. She has to establish that there was something going on that evening that George did that would put her in fear of her life at that moment based on prior experience with George. It's going to be very, very difficult to do in this case.
It's almost like she's reveling in this moment. I mean, she almost seems excited about going up there, you know?
State, do you
She's in the
recognize our jury?
spotlight.
Yep, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury? All right, thank you. Y'all can be seated. Members of the jury, after seated and comfortable, if you could raise your hands to confirm that you complied with the court's instructions during the break. Record reflect all hands have been raised. With that, state has rested. The defense is going to put on a case. Defense, Mr. Owens, you can call your first witness.
The defense would call Sarah Boone.
Raise your right hand, please sworn. Please be swear or affirm that the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
All right, ma'am, you could take a seat. And if you could, state and spell your name for the record for us.
Sarah Boone, 101077.
And could you spell your name?
SARAHBOONE.
All right, thank you very much. Sir, you may inquire.
Ms. Boone, would you please tell the jury where you were born and raised?
Atlanta, Georgia.
You were born in Atlanta?
I was born in Atlanta.
And how long did you stay in Atlanta before you moved here to Florida?
I was 3 years old, 3 or 4.
Okay. And from that time, y'all moved, you and your family, your mother and father, moved to Orlando?
And my grandparents.
Okay. Y'all all moved down from Atlanta down to Orlando?
Yes, and my 2 brothers.
Okay. And were you raised here essentially from that time on?
Yes.
And you resided here in Orange County, Florida that entire time?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you go to high school here locally?
I did.
Where did you go to high school?
Edgewater.
Okay. And tell the jury, how old were you when you graduated?
I was 18 years old.
Now, I know you lost your mother and father.
Overruled.
I know you lost your mother and father in your teens and in your 20s. Is that true?
I lost my grandfather when I was a sophomore in high school, and I lost my father when I was a senior. And then my mother passed away a few years after that, and then my grandmother passed away after my mother died.
Or so you were in your 20s when all that was going on?
Yes.
Okay. And then at some point in your 20s, you met Brian Boone?
I did, yes.
All right. And how long did y'all date before you married?
A good handful of years. I helped my family with paying mortgage and bills for the house since my father had passed away and my grandfather. So
You worked outside the home?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell the jury when you said you and Brian Boone dated for a while? Do you remember when y'all married?
I do.
Could you tell the jury when y'all were married?
The year?
Yeah.
You
remember the date?
It happened to be, yes, that after my mother passed away, that he had waited to ask me to marry him because he knew it would be, I would.
Sustained.
Just answer the question if you can, Ms. Boone. Are you a little bit nervous?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, just tell the jury if you remember the date that you and Brian Boone married.
August 21st, 2004.
Okay. And had y'all lived with each other for a short time before that?
Short time.
Yes. Okay. After you married, how long was it before y'all had any children?
Gosh, 6 years?
Okay. And y'all have one son.
Yes.
What's his name?
Lucas.
And how old is Lucas now?
Lucas will be 14 years old on the 28th.
28th of this month? So you and Brian were married and y'all lived in Orange County. How long were y'all married?
For 13 years.
Right, and y'all divorced?
Yes.
And as part of the divorce, were y'all to share custody of your son?
Yes.
And so y'all would split days, would that be fair to say?
Yes.
At some time after you and Brian split up, did you meet George Torres?
Yes.
All right, could you tell the jury how you met George Torres?
I met George when I decided to buck up, I guess, and was tired of trying to patch things up with my ex-husband. And I decided to go one day for a walk across the street and go have a beer by myself and sit and people watch just to get out of my house and a change of scenery.
All right, now is this your apartment?
No, this is the marital home.
Okay. Where is that marital home?
Winter Park?
You're no longer living in that marital home?
No.
Who lives in the marital home?
No one. It has been sold.
Okay. So you met George Torres before you got the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. And you met him at a bar across the street from the marital home?
Yes, we had a mutual friend there.
Were you introduced?
Yes.
All right. How did you and George get along when y'all first met?
Very well. It was strange how quickly we hit things off and had so much in common. And I never thought that he would be interested in someone like me. And I just couldn't believe that he was actually interested in me and said a lot of nice things. And 1 hour ended up being 4 hours from when we had first met. And then we would always have something to talk about.
Why couldn't you believe that he would be interested in you?
He was very handsome. He was very funny. He was smart, and I would show up in workout clothes and disheveled hair, and I guess I kind of felt broken from being in the process of the divorce that he knew about. But then one of the things that we could relate also was the fact that he was here in Florida because he had just been divorced from his second wife. So that was another topic that he and I could compare notes on.
So eventually the divorce was settled. Did you get your own place?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that after at first you lived in your parents' home, correct?
Yes, until I was married.
And then you moved directly in with Brian?
Yes.
And then y'all lived in the marital home, correct?
Yes.
And then you got this apartment.
Yes.
So that was the first time in your life that you actually had your own place.
Yes.
And what was the address?
4748 France Court, apartment number 3.
And what city is that in?
It's in Winter Park.
How far is that from here?
20 minutes.
Okay. So you got that apartment, and initially were you by yourself?
No.
All right, tell the jury.
In the almost year, about 10 months of separation from Brian, my ex-husband, that is the time when I met George. And my ex-husband was trying to buy me out or force me out of our marital home, and I needed to find somewhere to live. And
so did you and George agree to rent the apartment?
yes, I needed extra income. We could not afford it just on my own.
You were receiving some income from the marriage settlement, were you not?
Yes.
So you did have a consistent monthly income coming in from the marriage settlement,
For the most part, yes.
but you needed more to live.
Yes, to pay the bills and for rent.
So
Mike, I think she's her attorney's just trying to build a foundation to humanize her and to show her that she is a normal human being. She had a normal life with this guy, and it went terribly wrong. But he's really taking sort of a long time to get there.
Yeah, just making her look like just an ordinary person, nothing special, trying to, give, humanize her because they saw a horrific video and autopsy pictures and testimony. So, they're trying to, that's what the defense attorney is trying to do, trying to say, look, she's not a bad person. She's, she's had a tough life. I'm surprised the prosecutor hasn't objected to some of the questions as being irrelevant, or leading questions on direct. She's really not good at explaining. So he actually has to kind of suggest the answer. So you were with your husband, you were getting extra income. Isn't that correct? That sort of thing. And the prosecution is just letting it go. And I guess they just feel like they got a really rock solid case and they don't want to start having a showdown with the defense attorney over this part of her testimony. Quite
Absolutely.
interesting. Quite interesting.
Did you and George have some agreement?
We did.
All right, what was the agreement?
The agreement was that if I decided for he and I to live with one another, because it would be under my name, that he would help with the monthly bills and on a regular basis where it wouldn't be something that I would have to argue with him about. It would just be an automatic, make sure that everything's paid first, and then from there, hopefully have some fun with it.
Okay. So I understand from that point on, would it be fair to say that y'all saw each other on and off for about the next 3.5 years?
No, I would consider us a couple. At some point, he asked me to marry him.
Okay. But y'all did have times where he left and went to live with his parents.
Yes,
Is that fair?
yes,
And there were times where there was an understanding that y'all were going to break up.
multiple times.
Okay. All right. So again, on again, off again.
Yes, this was actually before we had our apartment. That was, I guess, our dating phase.
Okay. So y'all were together for 3.5 years. Is that fair?
Yes,
And y'all had actually agreed to marry?
he had asked me yes a couple of times to marry him, and one time I agreed to yes.
Okay. Now, I want to get directly to the date of this event so that the jury can hear your testimony. All right. So tell us, I believe the date is February the 23rd of 2020. Explain to the jury that whole day, from the time y'all got up, the whole thing.
Approach.
It sounds like he's being a little bit too, creating, just casting such a wide net with letting her say whatever she wants. To your point before, Mike.
Yeah. There's a little sidebar going on with the judge right now because the prosecution made an objection. I couldn't hear what the objection was, but they're just having a little sidebar. So I'm surprised because usually you'd say, I'm bringing your attention to February 23rd, 2020. Could you tell me, what you were doing that day? That sort of thing. So, that didn't seem like a bad question whatsoever, considering, she's already had the groundwork established that they've been together for 3.5 years, that sort of thing. So there's something going on that the prosecutor didn't like.
I think because it's like you said, he's just letting her speak a little bit too much instead of leading her into the questions and having her give short answers. He's sort of letting her give.
Objection's overruled for now.
Now, Ms. Boone, let's just, instead of one long speech, let me break you up over the course of the day. So, do you remember the date of February 23rd, 2020?
Yes,
Do you remember getting up?
yes.
All right, just tell the jury about that morning, what y'all did that morning, what you and George spent the night together at the apartment.
Yes, at that point, he was living there.
Yes. So y'all slept in the bed together upstairs, February. So y'all would have gotten up that morning, February 23rd of 2020.
Yes.
All right, tell the jury what happened when y'all got up.
He was already downstairs, and I went downstairs, and He wanted to start the day off by drinking because it was a day off from his job. And I talked him into cleaning and tidying up the house for a sense of accomplishment. So that is what we did for however long that it took. So we did tidy up the house and got everything in order, and it was kind of a reward, I guess, to be able to sit and enjoy ourselves and sit on the back porch.
All right, what do you mean by cleaning up the house? What did y'all do?
We swept and mopped. We folded some of the laundry. I know that we did the dishes, emptied the dishwasher, just general run-of-the-mill tidying up.
And did you have your son coming the next day?
Yes, that was one of the reasons why we were able to do that.
What was the arrangement you had in terms of the next day would have been your day to pick up your son from school?
Yes,
What time would you pick Lucas up from school the next day?
I believe his school ended at 3 o'clock.
So you would have been responsible to pick him up and he would be spending the night with you that night.
Yes,
So you wanted to have the house nice and clean.
yes,
How many bedrooms are in the home?
2.
And you and George had one bedroom? And who had the other?
Lucas.
Is that exclusively his bedroom?
Yes.
All right, so how long would it have taken y'all that morning to clean?
I don't really remember what time we woke up, but maybe a good 2, maybe 3 hours.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you and George both smoked cigarettes?
Yes,
And would it be fair to say that you and George both drink alcohol?
yes,
So at some point, y'all finished your chores, right? And then y'all were going to enjoy the day.
yes.
All right, what was the plan?
It was just kind of, we've got the day to ourselves. Let's just kind of relax and go with the flow.
Did y'all make a decision that y'all were going to start drinking?
Yes, we had a half of a bottle that was already in the refrigerator, and I did not want to go out afterwards. I, again, had Lucas coming the next day, so we went over to Publix to purchase another bottle of wine so we could not have to go out later on that evening.
Now, you were here in the court when the state played the video of you two and the Publix purchasing the bottle of wine?
Yes,
Is that what you're referring to here with the jury right now?
yes,
Okay. And that was around noonish?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Had y'all started drinking the leftover bottle before going to the Publix?
No,
Okay. So y'all bought a bottle of wine?
yes,
All right. And how did y'all get to Publix?
my car,
How far is Publix from your apartment?
5 minutes.
How would you get there from your apartment?
What do you mean?
Did you have to go across any major highways or is it right there?
You just come out of our apartment complex and you do a little U-turn and then you come up and it's right in that complex.
Okay. But it's easier to drive than to walk.
Yes,
I know at sometimes y'all would simply need cigarettes and it was in walking distance. Can you tell the jury about that?
yes. There was a AutoZone convenience store with in the same, I guess, parking lot of our townhome, our complex, and it was just a straight shot from our apartment to a back gate, and you could get right into the convenience store from right there.
But y'all went over to get that bottle of wine around noonish. And how did you took your car?
Yes,
Did George have a vehicle?
we did not.
And how did you pay for the wine?
With my debit card.
And then y'all came back and started drinking?
Yes.
Okay, tell us what you did when you got back from the Publix.
Just went on the back porch where we usually spend our time because we're able to smoke cigarettes outside as opposed to inside. And
Is cigarette smoking not allowed indoors?
it is not.
Okay. Do you have pets?
Yes, I do.
Or did you have pets?
I did, yes.
Okay. Were they with y'all there that day?
Yes, my dogs were with me all the time when I was there.
How many dogs do you have?
I have 2,
And just what are their names?
Penny and Tess.
And what is the breed?
They are red Boston Terriers.
And are they both disabled?
Yes, Penny is blind and Tef is deaf.
So when y'all went out to smoke on the back porch and drink, I assume, as well, correct?
Yes.
Did y'all take the dogs out?
Oh, yes.
Is there a place for them to do their business out there?
Yes, I extended our back porch for them to have a little bit of area as opposed to going from a large backyard from my marital home to our little townhome. And they would come out there and do their business, and I would open the gate and then walk them in the back part of our apartment.
So you and George were just going to enjoy the day together?
Correct.
Is it fair to say y'all don't have a lot of money?
Yes.
And so y'all were going to do something there in the home? Y'all weren't going out for dinner or?
Yes, I would consider us homebodies as opposed to going out and partying and doing this and that.
Okay. And how long do you think y'all were out that afternoon outside?
A few hours.
All right. Could you tell the jury what y'all did during that time?
We have a dartboard that's out there, and we just had drinks and we're just really enjoying each other's company and talking about, things upcoming. We both were looking for a job and just kind of, I guess, encouraging and supporting and planning. And
Well, now you said he had a job. Was he looking for a job, a second job?
no, the job that he had was very unstable, and at that,
So he was looking for something new.
yes, at that time, yes.
Okay. And so during that 2 or 3 hours, would it be fair to say that y'all drank the bottle?
Yes.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that y'all were feeling the effects of the alcohol?
Yes,
Okay. At some point, who made the decision to come in?
I did.
Okay. Why did you want to come in?
I felt that George needed a change of scenery.
Okay. So y'all came in, and then did y'all do anything else before he left again? Y'all doing anything? I know y'all did some arts and crafts. What did y'all do? At some point, he went to get another bottle at Publix.
Yes, I believe it was after it was right before I believe that we had gone inside. Because he called his daughters. I was trying to encourage him to call his family.
Okay, now where are his daughters?
His two daughters are located in Pennsylvania,
And what are their names?
Anna and Destiny.
And how old are they?
I believe that Anna is in her 30s and Destiny may be in her early 20s.
All right. Does he have any more children?
Yes, he has a son.
And where is his son?
He is in Pennsylvania also.
So part of that afternoon is y'all came in to call relatives, call family.
No, I had him call outside, just trying to, I guess, boost the mood. The first daughter didn't answer, and I don't remember the reason I didn't speak to the second one. I believe he did. It was just for a moment.
All right, now whose phone were y'all using?
My phone.
All right. And is that common for y'all to use that, for y'all to share that phone?
It was because George said that he didn't have a phone, so it would either be lost or given to him by his mother. So I didn't know he had a cell phone, so we would use my phone.
So it was primarily your phone?
Yes.
Okay. And you took a lot of photographs that were on that phone?
Yes.
Videotapes?
Yes.
Text messages?
Yes.
Phone calls?
He and I both on the phone calls.
So he would use it as well?
Yes.
And that phone, is that the one that was seized in this case?
Yes.
All right, so y'all called his daughters, and then during that phone call period, did y'all also call his brother?
Yes.
Okay, and which brother was that?
John.
Now, how many brothers and sisters does George have?
I'm gonna list them if that's okay.
Okay.
It's John, Burrell, Isaac, Mo, and his sister.
Okay. And do they all live here in Florida?
Yes,
Are they close by?
as far as I know, yes.
What about his parents?
Yes,
They live here as well?
yes.
Okay. But his ex-wives and his children live up in Philadelphia.
You know, Mike, the judge is really allowing a long sort of deposition here by just, talking about everyday things. I mean, it's a little bit much.
Was that conversation?
Yeah, I'm surprised the prosecutor hasn't been objecting. If I was a prosecutor, I'd be objecting. I'd be a lot more combative. I'd want to get this thing moving here. This is all irrelevant, totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
But I think the prosecutor's just letting them talk, so this way there's no appeal later on. I guess that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
So just to get an idea, about this time is when he went to get the second bottle, or did y'all stay inside for a while before he left?
No, from what I recall, I thought the day was over and it was going to be get ready for the evening, for the day. What do you want for dinner? Do you have an extra load of laundry that you need to throw in, kind of thing? And that was my understanding. And
This was about 5-ish or something?
I don't remember the time.
Okay. At some point during that time period, did George go to Publix again?
Yes, I thought he was going to be walking to the convenience store, but apparently when he returned, he had gone across the street with my car and my debit card to buy another bottle of wine.
What was your understanding of where he was going?
To the convenience store, walking.
For what?
Cigarettes.
And you learned obviously that he came back and you learned that he'd used your vehicle
Yes,
and he'd used your debit card
yes,
and he'd brought back a bottle of wine from Publix.
right,
And you saw the Publix video of that.
yes.
So he comes back with the other bottle of wine, and did he want you to drink with him?
It was expected, yes.
Yes. And you agreed to consume the second bottle with him.
Yes.
So over the course of that evening, drinking the wine, what did y'all do for time-wise? Watch a movie, music, just kind of tell the jury what you remember. I know it's obviously been a while, but.
It was kind of a regular thing where I would always try to come up with entertaining activities for George, and I bought a puzzle. We started off at one point doing a smaller puzzle, and then we did that very quickly. So then I purchased a larger puzzle, and I believe it was 1,000 pieces. So I thought, to get his mind off of things and to focus on something, it would be smart for us to do the puzzle. So for however long that took, we finished the puzzle. So that was one.
Doing a puzzle doesn't sound like something
every
you
piece
would
was
do while
finished.
you were
It was
drinking,
strange
because I
that we
can't
couldn't
see your
find one
patience
piece
being
because
very
we
high,
did that.
Yeah.
drinking and doing a puzzle.
On there, but yes, every one but one piece.
All right, after the puzzle, what did y'all do?
I decided to continue to maintain and focus him, and I have a bunch of paints that I used of my son's that his grandmother bought him. It's a very big art wooden box, and it's got pastels, pencils, paint, any kind of whatever. And he and I were very much into art, and with this resource, it got him very interested in being more creative.
How long have you been into art?
Ever since I can remember. As a child,
You like to draw?
I like to do anything artistic.
And I know, we saw some of the pictures of your apartment, but it looks like there was pictures and artwork up. Is that all your work and George's work?
The majority of it, yes, are belongings from my home. And then also some of George's, yes, on the wall.
Was he pretty good at art as well?
Yes,
All right, so you both enjoyed doing that.
very much.
So y'all got out Lucas's art set. What did y'all do with that?
We were just, I guess, doodling, whatever, I would always tell him that everything that you make is a masterpiece. So just let loose and just let it go. And we would just paint and, you know, paint and drink, yes, and listen to music sometimes, and yes.
Now, with the dogs, did y'all get the dogs involved?
Oh, yes, my dogs follow me everywhere, yes.
Is there some dancing going on with the dogs?
Yes, after we had completed the puzzle and I guess we're painted out, I thought that it might be a good point for us to maybe listen to some music. And the music that George listens to is it's very fractious to me, and it was definitely not going to lighten the mood. So we ended up finding some channel on the radio, and he was feeling it. And then we ended up, my one dog gets very active and was dancing with us, and we were just having a good time listening to music.
And I guess it's getting pretty late in the evening.
Yes.
Anything else I've missed?
I don't believe so.
All right. So tell us where y'all ended up before you started the game of hide and seek.
We were there. I couldn't think of anything else possibly that I had to continue entertainment. But I remember sitting at the end of the couch and him sitting in one of my son's chairs that was in the living room, and just kind of doing this. Like, what are we going to do now? Like, I very much would like to go to sleep.
Had y'all finished off the that bottle that he had bought?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Bless you.
Would it be fair to say that as the day wore on, the more y'all consumed?
Yes.
All right. And would it be fair to say that as the day wore on, the more you consumed, the more effects you felt from the alcohol?
Of course, yes.
Both of you?
Yes.
Okay. So you would agree, would you not, that at the time y'all were trying to figure out something to do and you put your head on the couch, that would it be fair to say that y'all were intoxicated?
Yes.
Tell the jury what happened.
At one point, I guess he knew that I couldn't come up with anything else, tapped me on my knee and said, "You're it." So from there, I ran up the stairs and hid into our shower, just waiting for him to find me so we could hopefully go to sleep soon at some point. And
Your shower, is it a tub or just a walk-in?
it's a tub, but it's in the master bedroom, and you have to go all the way upstairs. You have to go in the bedroom, and then you have to go into the bathroom part, and then there's the shower.
So did you lay down in the tub?
At one point, yes, I was.
So you were hiding?
I was trying.
Okay. And did you believe that he was going to come try to find you?
Yes.
Did you wait?
Yes, for quite some time.
All right. Then what did you decide to do?
That I decided that I need to go to sleep. I'm picking my son up the next day, and we need to start wrapping up the evening. And I went downstairs to find where he was.
And what I think the jury has seen pictures of your, would you call it an apartment or
It's considered a townhome.
a townhome? So you walk down the stairs, right?
Mhm.
And at the bottom of the stairs is a bookshelf here?
Yes, at the very end of it, yes.
Okay. So you walk down the stairs and you turn and look in the living room. What did you see?
I don't even think I made it all the way down the stairwell because I was just looking for him as soon as I could, to hopefully go upstairs as soon as we could. And I looked over and I saw him settling himself in the suitcase.
All right, tell us about the suitcase. How long, is it an older suitcase?
Yes,
Whose suitcase was it?
this is George's suitcase.
All right, and did he use it for traveling back and forth to Philly?
Yes, I had recently taken him on a trip to go see his children in Pennsylvania, whom he hasn't seen in years. And we took that with us. And because of how dilapidated it was, how broken it was, in the end, after that trip, we decided that we would donate it.
All right, and I understand y'all kept the suitcase upstairs.
Yes,
How long did y'all keep it upstairs?
since we had moved in.
Is there a closet up there you kept it in?
Yes, it was in the master closet, the master bedroom closet, all the way in the back because
Now
of,
it's like the
the
evil
size of it, and
suitcase,
there was
Mike.
nowhere to put it, so
Yeah.
it's all the way in the back.
Yeah.
So when did y'all decide to move it down from upstairs to downstairs? Was it that day or sometime earlier?
No, it was maybe a week or so prior.
Okay. And so what, y'all were gonna donate that to Goodwill or?
Yes, we were going to do, I guess, a spring cleaning. Anyone who has children understands that they grow quickly, and there was a lot of clothes that I needed to go through of my sons, and then also from George and I moving in and just kind of putting everything in there, at one point where we just needed to actually go through it and organize it and get things more in order.
So is that the reason it was downstairs? You were gonna donate it and a bunch of things that you're gonna put inside of it?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So it'd been down there a week, so it was already down there?
Yes, George brought it down.
Okay. So you said that you got down there, you're looking for him, you see him settling into the suitcase.
Yes.
What did you do?
In my head, I said, oh man, we're obviously not going to be going to sleep anytime soon. And I walked over and he was trying to get himself flat, so I couldn't tell that he was in there. And then,
Now, let me stop you there. The suitcase, is it the suitcase over here in the
yes,
box? You've seen it, you saw it.
yes,
It's a pretty big suitcase.
yes.
How big is George?
George was my height. And
How tall are you?
I'm 5'3".
Okay. And how much did George weigh?
I thought it was 100 pounds.
Okay. And how much did you weigh?
I was 98 pounds.
All right. Do you agree you put on some weight?
Since I've been incarcerated, yes.
Well, at the time, though, y'all were pretty skinny.
Yes.
So from the pictures, it looks like y'all were both pretty thin.
Yes.
All right. So because of his thinness, is that how? And he's a small man.
Yes.
Okay. So he was able to get in the suitcase on his own.
Yes.
Did he willingly get in the suitcase?
He was already in there.
Okay. When you got to him, did he see you?
Yes.
All right. Tell us what happened.
I mean, I zipped him up. We thought it was funny. And we're joking about how he was, I guess, small enough to fit inside of the suitcase.
All right. So what happened then?
From there, it was just, we were laughing about it. And it was just strange that he was small enough to fit in there. And then I kind of moved it around a little bit with him in the suitcase still. It was still funny that he was still in the suitcase. Just, I think he and I were just kind of, couldn't believe that he could fit in the suitcase.
Did you eventually close the top?
Yes, the top was already closed. As he was settling himself in there, that's how I knew he was in there, was because the top was kind of flopping a little bit.
Okay. So he had gotten in there to hide and he pulled the top
Yes,
on top of it, but you could tell he was in there.
yes,
You saw him right away.
yes,
All right. So at some point, did you zip him up?
yes.
Did you? And what was he saying or doing when you were zipping him up?
We just thought it was funny.
Were you both laughing?
Yes,
And so you zipped him up. Were y'all still laughing once you zipped him up?
yes.
Tell the jury what happened then.
From there, I moved the suitcase around a couple of times, just kind of on the wheels, and moved it around. And at that point, it was funny. We were joking and laughing about it.
All right, now eventually, did you go sit down on the couch and get your phone?
Yes.
Did I miss something?
Well, the suitcase had, for me moving it around was flopped over. So while it was like that, I thought at that point I had a moment to, I guess, take the time to talk to him while I guess he was not able to get out for a moment.
So you flipped it. You got it on the top, right?
Yeah.
It gets in, but at some point you flip it over. So the zipper is on the bottom.
Well, it was just kind of how I was moving it around, and it ended up kind of flopping. So
It was upside down.
yes,
So after you did that, what did you do?
that's when I went over and decided to videotape to just see the I guess the gist in it for him to understand that right now I feel safe, and right now I have the ability to actually speak to you in a manner that normally I would not have the ability to do.
And you were intoxicated,
Yes.
and you would agree.
So, Mike, she's
Yeah.
admitting to the fact now she's in control
Yes.
of him.
Yeah. Oh, she's Nurse Ratchet.
Realized
She
you could
said,
not get
I
out.
have to maintain and focus him. She's Nurse Ratchet from One Flew Over the
Yes.
Cuckoo's Nest.
So it goes on
She's
for
bad.
about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know
Yes.
how this is helping her cause whatsoever.
Yes.
You heard his voice as he was speaking from the suitcase.
Yes.
That was his voice on the video and audio.
Yes.
And you heard your voice on the video and audio.
Yes.
That was your voice.
Yes.
All those things said by the man were said by George in that 2-minute video.
Correct.
All the words said by the female were said by you in that 2-minute video.
Correct.
Were you intending on showing him the video the next day?
Yes.
At the time or the next day, is it fair to say you don't even remember videotape?
I do not.
So from what you can tell from watching it, did that refresh your memory about that event?
I did.
Why did you say all that?
Sounds like there's an objection in the courtroom. A break in the action. Whatever she's saying here, I don't see how it's helping her whatsoever. And what is the course of the questioning by her attorney that's supposed to help her? This doesn't seem at all helping her. So, but yet he's still pursuing this, telling this story. And they got to the point where he's inside the suitcase. She's got this dumb smile on her face right now. It's really not that funny, though, I don't think, and again, right, Chris from the chat, nothing is going to help her. Exactly. Like, what is the point of this exercise in interviewing her in regards to this? I don't see how it's helping her at all. Every time she talks about it, it seems to dig her deeper into hurting her. And the attorney, again, in this line of questioning, really, it doesn't seem like, what's the point? What actually is the point? I guess we'll find out soon, but right now it's not doing anything for her. Folks, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button on the screen, the red button, just click it. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. And you want to join our channel, we have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels.
Mr. Rhodes, you may proceed.
Here we go. Just
I'm talking about just
testifying,
the
period,
2-minute
crazy.
video part that was recorded. Could you just tell the jury what you were feeling, what your feelings were at the time, and then explain that to the jury? You mentioned, you talked about it before. You said he was in that confined space and it was my chance, but do you want to elaborate on that or?
Sure. I want you all to know that the majority of the time, am always afraid and always scared.
All right, well, I understand that. Okay, I understand that. But would it be fair to say that you had some anger at that point?
I did.
Would it be fair to say that you wanted to tell him off to some degree?
I just wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
And you could tell that he was uncomfortable.
I'm guessing.
And did you want him to feel some uncomfort?
I did.
Okay. Now, at some point, you turned off the video.
Yes.
And then we saw a second video, which was approximately 11 minutes later. And you've seen that video. It was played to the jury. It was 22 seconds long.
Yes.
And I don't think you speak in that video. You hear George say Sarah one time.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So between the 2-minute video and the 22-second video is an 11-minute period. Would you tell the jury what happened?
We continued to, I guess, speak to one another, and his tone changed, and I knew the tone, and we ended up, I guess, arguing back and forth with one another, and
How crazy is
it
that?
was the things that he was saying very much frightened me, and cursing at me and threatening me. And
Did he want you to let him out of the suitcase?
I'm sure so.
Okay. Go ahead, tell the jury.
And it got very heated very quickly, and he continued to push on the suitcase. And my fear was that he was going to break out of the suitcase, knowing that it was a broken suitcase. And his hand started to come through. His hand started to come through this way. And so I shook the suitcase. Trying to get his hand to go back in, shaking it, and telling him that, please stop doing this. Please stop doing this to me. Please stop doing this to me.
So his hand actually got out of the suitcase.
Yes.
And you went to the suitcase
Yes.
and shook it.
Yes.
Did that force his hand to go back in?
No.
So you're shaking it. Were you shaking it to try to get the suitcase, his hand back in?
Yes.
How long did you shake it?
I don't know.
But his hand was still out.
Yes.
Was he trying to get out?
Forcefully, yes.
Was he angry at you?
Yes.
Were you in fear?
Always.
If he would have gotten out of the suitcase, what would he have done to you?
Like he used to tell me, he probably would have made me unrecognizable, or I would have lost my life.
Did you lose the grip on the suitcase?
Yes.
Where was the bat in relation to the suitcase?
It was leaning up against the dining room table right there.
How far was the bat from the suitcase?
3 feet, 2 feet.
Was his hand still out of the suitcase?
Yes.
And was he getting out of the suitcase?
He very much was trying, yes.
And so what did you do?
For the split second reaction that I had, I happened to see that, and I grabbed the baseball bat and was trying to poke his hand to go back in, to please don't break through, please. So I hit his hand.
Did you hit the outside part of his hand?
Yes.
We've seen the photographs of his left hand. Did you cause the bruising there?
I'm guessing yes.
Now, you've seen the bat. It's a youth bat.
Yes, I bought it for my son.
Is this the bat you used?
Yes.
And you said you poked him with it?
Yes, I kind of pushed, like I held it with the skinny part here and then
So the grip here,
prodded at it. Yes.
you grabbed it with both hands here,
Yes.
and then the barrel of the bat, the big part of the bat is here.
Correct.
And you thrusted it into the different areas of the suitcase?
I started with his hand, and his hand, he was still trying to get out. He was still trying to do that. So I started to push on the suitcase around it, hoping to have his hand retract and go back inside.
This is not helping her cause whatsoever. This is hurting her cause, actually. I don't know whose idea this was, but, her
You made those
thrusting
injuries.
forward with the bat
I
makes...
did.
We've seen the photographs.
Yes.
We see the bruising. Is that from that bat?
Yes.
Eventually, did his hand go back inside from you doing?
Yes. Finally, he had subsided and retracted his hand.
So in your mind, did you prevent him from attacking you?
Absolutely. Split-second decision.
Now, once he retracted his hand, do you remember zipping it up some, or what did you do in relation? Because he was upside down, was he not, at that point?
Yes,
At some point, you flipped him back up.
I did.
Tell how that happened.
He wasn't cursing. He wasn't threatening. His hand was inside foremost. There was no more of him trying to break through the suitcase. So I felt safe enough to turn it back over. It wasn't happening anymore.
You went back to the video and the couch,
I did, yes.
and we saw the second video,
Yes,
the 22-second, and he's right side up again,
yes,
and you hear him say, Sarah?
yes.
Had you left enough room for him to get out? Zipper to zipper.
Yes, that's how his hand was trying.
That suitcase has two zippers, doesn't it? And they meet at various places along the line?
Correct.
How much room, when you flipped it over, how much room was between zipper to zipper?
I don't know specifically. I mean, it was enough to where his hand was coming out.
After you had hit him with the bat, was he not trying to get out anymore?
No,
Did you believe that he could breathe in there?
yes,
Did you ever believe he could die in there?
no, at all.
Were you trying to kill him?
Never.
Did you want to kill him?
I did not.
This is very unconvincing.
Did you walk upstairs?
I did, yes.
Why didn't you let him out before you walked upstairs? Were you afraid?
Terrified is more of the word.
As long as he was in the suitcase, he couldn't harm you.
Correct.
When he's Did you want him to calm down?
Yes, I wanted him to stop being angry because I know what it is for him to be angry.
You went upstairs. Where were the dogs?
The dogs ran upstairs with me.
And where did they go?
On the bed.
Did you have the phone with you?
Yes,
I know at some point you called your husband, Brian, did you not?
I did.
Do you recall how long that conversation was?
Not very long.
Can you recall what was said?
I don't remember exactly. No, I don't.
I think this has to be one of the worst decisions any attorney ever made of putting her on the stand. This is horrible.
Ms. Boone, Sarah Boone, you said that when he was in the suitcase, he was threatening you. Can you tell the jury what he was saying?
I don't know. Am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
But he was going to fucking end me. And that's what made me ask him please to stop doing what he's doing to me. That he was going to, I'm guessing, try his best that night to probably take my life.
But what the threat you heard was he's
going to
say the
fucking
word.
end me.
Excuse me?
Fucking end me.
End you?
Yes.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
You know, we've all seen the video. It's not consistent with the video that we've seen.
Judge, go ahead and approach your bench.
Story she's telling and the video that we watched of him begging for his life. Sarah, I can't breathe. Sarah, you got to let me out of here. Sarah, you know, and she's telling a story as if none of us watched that, as if none of us saw that video. It's just, it's absolutely crazy. And she comes across like she's making it up as she goes along almost. That's how this comes across. And I'm not sure I'm not the only one watching this, but that's my perception of it. Rui, more like she said that to the victim. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Marigold De Vera, it's Sarah's fault to be on the stand, not her lawyer, because Sarah wants to prove how stupid she is. Well, I think that you're probably right that she called the shots, but look, she's gone through 8 attorneys before this
All right,
trial.
members of the jury, it is 2:14. I have a matter that I have to discuss with counsel at this point in time outside of your presence. So I'm going to ask you to retire to the deliberation room. We'll bring you back in as promptly as possible. Again, similar instruction that I've given you. Please do not conduct any independent investigation or research as the person, places, things, or charge involved, and do not have any discussions amongst yourselves or anyone else about those things. We'll bring you back in as promptly as possible. Thank you.
So obviously a legal issue they have to discuss out of the sound and sight of the jury. And Sarah Boone testifying very, very unconvincingly. I think everyone watching this, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but most people watching this can see that this is a big mistake, that she should have never testified. She's unsympathetic. She's unconvincing.
Y'all may be seated. Thank you. State, you can proceed with any argument at this point in time.
Judge, I believe that's pretty close to what we already knew from the deposition testimony, from the doctors relaying what she said for the proffer. What we have here is testimony from the defendant. Her timeline is she comes downstairs after having gone up to the shower and hiding, laying down after being declared to be it. She comes back downstairs, and before she gets back to the bottom of the stairwell, she can see that the victim is in the suitcase trying to get flat because the lid is flopping, and he's not hidden just yet. And so she comes over, and I believe she testified she was moving it around before actually zipping the lid shut, but moving it around, everybody's laughing, it's all fun and games still. And then she zips it, and it's still fun and games, and everybody's laughing. And then at this point, she testifies that this is now her opportunity to get on her pulpit to express her true feelings about everything. And that's when she sits down on the couch and opens up her phone device and begins recording what later turns out to be IMG _1062.movie at 11:12:45 for 2 minutes and 3 seconds. During this period of time, the decedent is expressing meekly that he can't breathe. The only time he ever curses at her is, Sarah, I can't fucking breathe. Babe, I can't fucking breathe. He is demonstrating under the law that he is in fear of losing his life. She has committed an aggravated assault. She has committed false imprisonment. She was the initial aggressor. There was no overt act to justify these actions that she took against her boyfriend. She then goes on to say that during this period of time between the end of the movie at 11:14:48 seconds and before the next one starts at 11:23, that it's now at this time, while he's still constrained and clearly unable to get out under his own power despite having his hand out, she begins beating him with a bat, poking his hands, poking the suitcase with a deadly weapon. A bat is used for baseball, but it can also be used to harm another person. And according to the medical examiner's testimony, there was great harm caused to him, deep ecchymosis bruises. She can't start to do this out of fear, like the analogy I gave earlier. If I pull a gun to rob you, Judge, and you pull a gun, I can't shoot you in self-defense. She started this. She started this. There was no overt act. And therefore, we're asking for you to prevent, under the case law, any prior instances of violence, any reputation evidence, and any battered spouse syndrome evidence, because that's simply just what the case ended up being. Thank you.
Response.
Judge, this was a game by two intoxicated people. When people are drunk and intoxicated, they do silly and stupid things. The evidence is uncontroverted that George Torres willingly, by his own choice, elected to hide in the suitcase. By their interaction between the two of them, giggling and laughing at each other, he consented to her zipping up the suitcase. And the playful nature of what was going on during those few minutes prior to the video. When the video is turned on, there's a 2-minute period where they're talking. He's saying, I need to get out. I can't breathe. She's not taking him seriously. As you've seen from the videos, I thought it was the boy crying wolf. She did not appreciate the fact that he could be actually having trouble breathing. And this was a chance for him to be heard by her about how she felt about some things involving their relationship. A short time later, the video was turned off, and then that period has been testified to by my client. And that period is uncontroverted. That's a second period of time. We've got that time for the video. We got the 11 minutes. We got the 22 seconds. And there's no video. There's no audio. There's no eyewitness. There's nothing but Sarah Boone's testimony. And she's testified here today that they had words. There were threats. He got his hand out of the suitcase. She knew by the threats and him getting his hand out of the suitcase that he was about to get out of the suitcase and he was going to hurt her. A reasonable person under that scenario would believe She was about to be harmed. She was an imminent threat of harm. She blocked that attack by grabbing the bat, hitting his hand. When that didn't work, she started poking him with the bat in the suitcase. Eventually, she poked him several times. He put his hand inside the suitcase. She put the bat up. When she realized he was not going to do that any further, she flipped him over right side up. She still had a fear, knowing that if he got out, she would be harmed. He would beat her up. She went upstairs. That is an overt act based on the discussions, coupled with the fact that he threatened her, using the word, I'm going to fucking end it for you, or some words to that effect. I don't remember her exact words, just before she went upstairs while he was still in the suitcase. If she would have let him out, and this is a crime, now this is an event involving an omission, failure to act, failure to unzip him at that point before she went upstairs. The failure to act, the failure to unzip, which would have let him out, which would have created a situation that she believed was imminent bodily harm to herself. And I guess I'll get a couple of examples. Let's say that a police officer is called to a scene and the only thing he hears is there is a suspect and the suspect may be armed. So of course the officer pulls out his revolver and he's walking around. Well, then eventually he finds the suspect and the suspect reaches for his waist. The officer doesn't see the gun, but the officer sees the movement to the waist. The officer fires and shoots the suspect. The officer is justified because there's an immediate threat of harm. The officer has to react instinctively. There's no time to think. Similar to the actions that Sarah Boone had to take. Another example, you're in a bar with your buddies and you've had something to drink and another group has had something to drink and one of your buddies gets into an argument with one of the buddies on the other party. And one of your friends, seeing that it's being escalated and the guy that's arguing with your buddy is aggressive, more aggressive than your buddy is. Your buddy's trying to settle the thing, but this other individual, maybe he's had too much to drink and he's more aggressive. So you go around behind this individual, and before he's able to strike your buddy, you grab him, you lock him up. That's physical restraint to block an attack. Or you grab him by the neck and you choke him. Physical restraint to block an attack. That's what she was doing with the suitcase. If she let him out of the suitcase, she was going to be harmed based on him trying to get out with his hand, based on the threats he made while he had his hand out, and based on the threats he made while he had his hand inside just before she went upstairs.
Thank you. Court's going to review all the case law that it's obtained in its research in this matter and come back with an oral ruling momentarily. Thank you.
This is, my God, this is so hard. This is so hard to believe because it's just that what the defense that that her attorney just tried to present is ridiculous. I'm finding it to be ridiculous. It's not even remotely feasible. It's ridiculous. And he's trying to sell this shit to the jury. And I could see that the judge was unimpressed because what we all see, what everyone cannot get off their brain, the imprint on their brain of this here. The suitcase.
Sarah,
His voice, Sarah.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Stupid. That's my name. The word on.
I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
This is what's imprinted on our brain right here. Her testimony is just not believable.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Real ransom. Now you want to give it for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Real ransom.
Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you cheat on me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Fucking breathe, Sarah.
Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
Sarah.
For the record, that was IMG_106.
Can anyone watch that and not be just totally blown away by it? And almost no matter what the defendant says, not be able to believe anything that the defendant says, because you've watched the most powerful piece of evidence. It's just, she should have taken the plea. You know, I know it's way too late now, but you know something, this was the most horrific decision to make. A, to take this case to trial. B, to get on the stand and testify when they have that tape of you cursing at him, you drunkenly cursing at him begging for his life. Just one of the worst decisions in modern jurisprudence I have ever heard. Queen Carter, and if I'm not mistaken, the stairs are on the opposite side of the kitchen. So how did she see George getting into the suitcase before she even got to the bottom? You know, Queen Carter, that's a good, I don't think many people believe that he voluntarily got into the suitcase. Reading the chat, it seems that most of us think that she somehow physically got him into the suitcase. When you watched her on the stand demonstrating what she did with that bat and poking it at his hand with the barrel end of the bat hitting his hand, she even had the face on it. She was pushing the bat forward and demonstrating how she hit him with the bat. I thought that was like horrific. You know, that in itself, I think, will get her convicted of murder. Her own words, her own testimony is just absolutely outrageous. Frances Martel, her drunken slur and angry face, childish rant do not sound in any way afraid for her life. Frances Martel, excellent. Excellent. You're right. And all of those things the jury's looking at. The jury wants to know. The jury perhaps is looking, well, what can we see that would make us sympathetic toward her? What about her testimony can make us sympathize with her? Right now, not a single damn thing can make you sympathetic. Paul from the chat, her own words found her guilty. You know, Paul, I think you're 100% right. Just even though its presentation, at first, I think the attorney just was going to let her tell this long narrative about what happened. And I think that the state objected to that. So he started asking her some questions. But her testimony on the stand, I felt no sympathy toward her whatsoever. And I don't, I think I'm sort of part of the majority here. Foxy Amazon, she's insane for demanding to take the stand because you know that's what she did. Yeah, I think you're right, Foxy Amazon. I think any attorney worth his salt or her salt would have said, no, you're not going to testify. And how would he tell her? Because one of the reasons you're not going to testify is because you're unsympathetic. Your testimony is unsympathetic. You come across as angry. Terry B from the chat, am I mistaken? But did the defense ask for manslaughter charge, yet the plea she was offered? Terry B, you're not mistaken. Initially, before today, before the trial started, the prosecution offered a manslaughter plea. She turned it down. Just today, the defense said that manslaughter should be one of the charges. Can the judge offer that up to the jury? Can they offer a manslaughter charge? I believe so. Will the judge offer a manslaughter plea at this point? That remains to be seen. That I think that would be a meeting between the prosecution, the defense, and the judge. And I don't know if at this point, will the prosecution agree, since she was already offered a plea bargain to manslaughter one and turned it down. So in essence, she's wasting the court's time. Audrey Carruthers, she's the one that said, I'm going to end you. By her actions, perhaps, and by her language to him. Kevin from the chat, she's a fool to herself. This is unbelievable. Sherry Murray, like I said before, dumbass. Yeah, I think you're right. It's unbelievable, her testimony, the testimony that she's given today. It's hard to believe that that again, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but she wanted to testify. Why? Kay from the chat, she needs to be punished. I agree with you. Richie Rich from the chat, she texted George's brother saying that she's going to play hide and seek with him. We all remember, her interview with the when she was interviewed by the detectives over 4 years ago, and we remember how she sounded then. Let me put that up on the screen while the judge is out. This is her interview years ago.
we have had in quite some time.
We go inside the interrogation room with Sarah Boone. She's accused of killing her boyfriend by zipping him inside a suitcase.
Have you ever zipped him up in a suitcase prior? No.
It happened 3 years ago. She claims the two were playing a game of hide and seek.
Last time we talked to you, you had said that you put him in the suitcase.
I flipped him over, and that's where it was.
But deputies say she left him in there until he died.
So pushing up on a suitcase saying, Sarah, 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 I can't breathe. George has done that in the past before too, where it's just like he thinks that he's woe is me kind of thing.
Take a look at these pictures. They come from video found on Boone's cell phone. Investigators say these are the moments when George Torres Jr. was zipped up into the suitcase and died. Good evening and welcome. I'm Luann Sorrell.
And I'm John Brown. Boone's trial is set to begin 2 weeks from today. Fox 35's Stephanie Buffamonte joins us in studio tonight. And Stephanie, you looked through hours of evidence today, and you have more chilling videos. But before we show them to you, we want to warn you that some of these may be disturbing.
That is right. Some of the videos are just really hard to look at. So before we show you, take a moment, make sure you're ready. Prosecutors say Sarah Boone was the one filming her.
All right, the judge is coming back. Let's get that back on the screen. Oh wait, I got the wrong one. Okay, let's get the it appears they're back up on the. Okay.
New entertainment, but I remember sitting at the.
That's not the. This isn't the right timing of this. Hang on a second, folks. I'm little technical difficulties here getting this back up on the screen. The live shot of the judge coming back into the courtroom. Let me see if I can get it back up on the screen, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. I think we got it now.
Identification, defense identification, composite L, 2 photographs of a burn to her leg.
You said that was L, correct?
Yes.
Again, assuming proper testimony that the decedent was responsible for that in a criminal manner and fair and accurate depiction.
Okay.
Defense exhibit M, identification.
Garrett Weimer here. Just wanted to jump in briefly while they are continuing to do some housekeeping things with the evidence and some photos that will soon be introduced into evidence. But that's a win for the defense this afternoon, as the judge has ruled that that overt act has been established. And so the defense can now move forward with their battered spouse defense and bring in the character of George Torres from previous incidents. And that's where we're likely going to see that those photos, maybe even videos, and I think 911 calls were mentioned as well from previous incidents between Sarah Boone and George Torres. So an overt act had to be established. The defense said it was basically if she let him out of that suitcase, he could have killed her. The judge said that court precedents and case law shows that a scintilla of a overt act being established is enough. And so he ruled that that was met, and that is why they will be able to move forward with this defense. So let's go ahead and listen back in as they finish up these housekeeping things, and then we'll bring the jury back in shortly, and Sarah Boone will resume her testimony here in just a little bit.
Okay, no objection.
That's a pretty big decision by the judge for allowing this overt act defense. It was established.
Judge, this is where he took a bat. It's 5 photographs where he took a bat to the TV, to Sarah's TV.
My understanding, is this O? This is still O, correct?
Yes.
My understanding from the state is there's no objection so long as the foundation's established.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We also intend to introduce the video. There's a short video on Sarah's.
State's Exhibit 2. We're not
Okay. No objection so long as foundation is established.
P, identification, defense identification P, is 2 photographs of an incident in which.
No objection as long as foundation is laid, etc.
All right, no objection so long as appropriate predicate is established.
Now, these next ones are individual photographs, not composites, but Q for identification is 1 photograph.
Is that part of the like stuff that we already done?
I was told this was separate from the burn. This was I think a slap or something. Not the burn.
So the defense can move forward with a battered
Regard to
spouse.
Q, no objection so long as the
Amazing.
appropriate foundation is laid.
That could change lots of things here.
Identification R.
No objection as long as foundation laid.
No objection to R so long as foundation is laid.
S.
Same for S.
Identification.
With regard to S, no objection so long as foundation is laid.
Same for T.
T.
No objection by the state so long as appropriate foundation is laid.
Same for U.
No objection from the state so long as appropriate foundation is laid for U. Same for V.
Same for W.
W.
Same for X.
X.
Same for Y.
Y.
That's all.
A very huge decision by the judge allowing this battered spouse defense. We all have listened to Sarah Boone's testimony. It was not very believable, not very convincing. Let's see if this decision could change how this case proceeds. It's obviously a victory.
Identification for A.
Were these the ones that we addressed pre-trial?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem with that being demonstrative aid.
Okay.
So in terms of introducing this as an exhibit into evidence.
Duplicative, competitive.
Is it contained in K through Y?
Yes.
Then, is that accurate?
I believe so. I mean, I know the clerk.
Richie Rich from the chat, this is going to give her either manslaughter or if they feel that she might actually get away with this. I don't know about that.
8.5 by 11.
If it's, I'll allow you to use it for demonstrative purposes, but I'm not going to accept it in evidence as it is duplicative of what's already in evidence as X, defense pre-marked X.
And then identification C.
Same thing, same photographs.
That was either, it was one of the earlier ones we addressed. M or N was the staircase.
So they're really showing pictures of prior acts by George Torres.
Okay, for the same reasons, you can utilize it for demonstrative purposes, but it's duplicative as the exhibit itself will be entered into evidence, presumably.
So I have D, identification.
Same thing, it's one of the photographs and it's on the state's digital.
Any disagreement that it's included in your remarked
I agree.
Okay, then same ruling. It is duplicative. You can utilize it for demonstrative purposes.
Identification E,
Is it included, sir, in K through Y?
yes.
Then for the same reasons, it's duplicative. You can utilize it for
The
demonstrative
defense
purposes
attorney is
only.
just showing some of the evidence they have, and the judge is ruling on whether or not they can
It's
use
included
it
in your submittals?
as a
All right,
defense.
same ruling. It's
exhibit.
duplicative. You can utilize it for demonstrative purposes, but it will not be accepted into evidence.
Identification G,
Is it included in your submittal, sir?
yes.
All right, for the same reasons, I find it's duplicative. You can utilize it for demonstrative purposes, but not seeking it into evidence.
H, yes.
Same ruling. You can use it for demonstrative purposes, but it will not be received into evidence by virtue of it being duplicative.
Identification I,
Same as T.
Any disagreement with that, sir?
no, sir.
Same ruling. Court finds it's duplicative. You can utilize it for demonstrative purposes.
Identification, Madam Clerk.
This ruling by the judge seems to be
Hang on, is that the house?
quite lenient.
I think that's Bravo.
Ruling on the side.
Is it
of
the defendant on the
defense,
porch with the
which
two
could
dogs?
Change this
That was
case a
pre-marked
great
before
deal.
trial as Bravo.
Same.
It was as defense M. Relevancy objection is overruled, but I'm not going to allow the enlargement as it's duplicative, as the native photo is in evidence. But you can use it for demonstrative
Yeah, I
purposes.
probably want to use these in closing and just use this, use that for the.
However you see fit, sir.
Okay, this is not working today?
I can't speak to that. I don't know that anybody today has utilized it. But that's not connected to the overhead. That's separate and apart from the overhead.
Okay, oh, okay. Judge, what other evidence do we have? Body cams? Excuse me? Nothing?
So the judge has ruled an overt act established.
Nothing
Defense
else
can
to
move
say.
forward with
Maybe some
battered
body cam
spouse
footage to
defense.
refresh memories. We've got two deputies out there.
Okay.
Um,
Any other exhibits with regard to Ms. Boone at this point in time, Mr. Owens?
no, sir.
State any reason why we cannot ask Ms. Owens or Mr. Owens to continue his inquiry of Ms. Boone and have her return to the witness stand. All right. Mr. Owens, anything else we need to discuss, sir? Sure.
Well, Sarah Boone should be getting back on the stand with the defense presenting some of this battered spouse evidence that they have.
Judge, I think we're ready.
Okay. If we can bring Ms. Boone back up to the witness stand. Once she is seated, we can bring back in our panel.
The wheels of justice grind very, very slowly, as you can see.
Let's go ahead and stand and bring back in our panel.
The jury is being led back into the courtroom. And then Sarah Boone is going to restart her testimony, probably with a new vigor that she just received a favorable decision by the judge, Judge Michael Kramer. Here comes the jury into the courtroom. jury is walking back into the room, being seated.
State, you recognize our jury?
Yes, sir.
Defense, you recognize our jury?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All can be seated. Members of the jury, again, you could, once seated, raise your hands to confirm that you complied with the court's instructions during our last break. Record reflect all hands have been raised. Mr. Owens, you may continue with your inquiry, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Boone, so I think we left off. You had called your ex-husband.
Yes.
All right. After you called your ex-husband, what happened after that?
I ended up falling asleep.
Okay. Do you remember waking up the next morning?
Yes.
Did you sleep in?
Not intentionally.
Okay. But you didn't get up at 8 o'clock, did you?
No.
Did you wake up closer to noon?
I believe so, yes.
Did you check the time?
No.
Now, did you hear your phone ringing?
Yes, my phone was ringing.
And did you answer it right away?
No.
Do you know approximately how many times it rang before you answered it?
I believe the call was about 3 times.
Did you know who was calling?
I figured it was my ex-husband.
And why would he be calling?
To make sure that I was still on schedule to pick up our son.
At 3 that afternoon?
Correct.
And he goes to school there close by?
Yes.
All right. When you woke up, did you stay in bed for a while?
For a little while, yes.
All right, tell the jury what happened when you got up.
I knew it was my ex-husband calling repeatedly. I didn't answer right away because one of our problems is that he doesn't understand that I'm doing things around the apartment and looking for jobs and so on and so forth. So I inevitably just let it ring, and I laid in the bed, and I figured that George was downstairs either drinking or looking for jobs, or may have just left. And so eventually I decided to get out of the bed and start moving to go downstairs. I was motivated enough to go downstairs. And when I went downstairs, it was very quiet. So I had the understanding, I believed that he had left. And
did you check to see if where would he be looking for a job at?
Usually on the couch, he would have my son's laptop, and he and I, which we would share.
Y'all only have the son's laptop?
Correct.
And the TV was not working at this time?
The TV was not there.
Okay. So you thought he would be in the living room on the laptop?
Yes.
He was not there?
No.
Where else did you look for him?
I looked on the back porch. I went through the front door to see if my car was there, thinking maybe he had taken my car. I checked the bathroom, and when I was checking the bathroom, I saw the suitcase, and I remembered about the night prior, and I unzipped the suitcase. And
Let me stop you there. You said you were in the bathroom when you saw the suitcase, or coming out of the bathroom?
No, where our bathroom is, I would have to go to the bathroom here. And then when I turned around, I noticed the suitcase, and I remembered.
How did you feel when you saw the suitcase?
I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that before.
Describe it for the jury.
I guess I was aghast, and I just can't describe the feeling.
Bless you.
It was terror to
Bless you.
a certain degree.
I'm sorry, say that again now.
It was terror to a certain degree. I just can't describe it in words, the feeling of remembering. And then he was still in there.
So what did you do?
I immediately unzipped the suitcase, and I was screaming, George, 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 and I was shaking him. And I pulled him out and I stretched him out flat. And then I began instantly trying to do CPR, and then was trying to look for a pulse or a breath or just anything. And was just screaming his name over and over and over again. And come on, George, come on, George. And I continued CPR, and I continued CPR, and he was gurgling. And
What color was it?
what color was he?
Yes.
He was purple.
At some point, did you call your ex-husband?
Yes, when he started to gurgle, and I knew that my ex-husband is notorious for bringing my son over in very inopportune times when George is possibly drunk or doing things not appropriate for my son to see. And I just didn't know what to do. It was just a quick knee-jerk reaction. Ryan was kind of my go-to person because of my family being deceased, and I don't have anyone else that I can call. And I just wanted to ensure that he would not bring my son over in the process of all of this at some point.
So you called him.
I called him.
Did you ask him what to do? Or did you just tell him to come over?
I just told him to come over.
Did you tell him that you felt like George was dead?
Yes, I did.
And how far? You said it's 5 minutes from house to house?
Yes.
Did you call him back?
Yes, because he was taking so long. It felt seconds were hours. Yes. I'm still doing CPR at the same time in the process of it. I'm doing CPR, I don't know how many times.
Did he get there?
Yes.
Did he walk in?
Yes.
Did he walk out?
Yes.
What did he tell you to do?
Call 911.
What did you do?
I called 911.
Is that the recording we've heard here in this trial?
Yes.
Did you love George?
To this day.
Why did you love him?
George was very passionate. George was a very real person. George was nice to me on the good days. George complimented me. George and I were two bodies with one soul, he and I would always say. I don't believe that I've ever had a connection with anyone like I have with George.
Did you have that connection with your ex-husband?
I did not.
Was it even close?
No.
George has some good traits, doesn't he?
Very much.
Did George have some bad traits?
He did.
Did you drink too much?
I did.
Did George drink too much?
Yes.
Tell the jury about George's drinking.
If George was able to, he would drink from sunup to sundown. And me having my son and trying to work and maintain the home and just have a life, a normal life as best as I could, somehow that upset George. And because I had a certain dollar amount from my divorce settlement, At one point, it was from wine we could afford vodka. So a lot of the times he would take my card, my debit card, and go buy the large, we call them handles, of vodka, which is the big bottle. And sometimes he would finish that all off on his own throughout an entire period of a day into an evening. That's honestly where I thought that he was going to be that morning when I came downstairs, because he's notorious for just automatically already being outside from drinking all the time.
All right. And you said you have an alcohol problem. George has an alcohol problem.
Yes.
How did George's drinking adversely affect you?
It would debilitate my ability to help him the way that I was always trying to help him, because it would be one good day, a day of survival, and then it would be another day where I'm having to peel him off of me and call 911.
Why would he get that way? Tell us his pattern as it relates to drinking, and then
Approach.
The prosecution objected to the defense's line of questioning, and they're approaching the bench for a sidebar at this point. I don't know.
The attorneys have approached the bench discussing with the judge after an objection by the prosecution there. The latest line of questioning about George's bad traits. You heard James Owens ask Sarah Boone about that after they talked about, did you love George? Her answer, she said, I do to this day. They were talking about his good traits, but also talking about his bad traits and his drinking habits. Obviously, this line of questioning now allowed after the judge ruled just a little bit ago that the defense can continue with the battered spouse syndrome defense because of an overt act being established in Sarah Boone's description of what happened that night, specifically the defense talking about the threats that were made, and had she let George out of that suitcase, that she believed she would have been killed, potentially killed that night. So let's get you back inside the courtroom here and listen in. The attorneys and the judge continuing to discuss an objection by the prosecution over the last question by the defense. Interesting to hear Sarah Boone also talk about the morning after, seeing the suitcase, remembering what happened the night before. She described her reaction as being aghast, saying she had terror to a certain degree, and described unzipping the suitcase and screaming, George, 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 before beginning CPR, and then calling her ex-husband. She did describe George inside the suitcase as being purple. Let's see here the conversation continuing between the judge. You see the judge and the attorney, Sarah Boone, still on the witness stand. The jury inside the jury box right now as this conversation continues.
Again, her testimony is not moving me, and I don't see that it's moving many of you guys in the chat. She seems pretty cold-hearted. The defense of the battered woman syndrome, I'm not really feeling it based on what her actions were toward George. They had an extremely
Objections overruled for now.
They were coming back, the defense attorneys coming back, questioning her again.
you're already together 3.5 years.
Yes.
Is there times when he would get to a state of intoxication where he would get violent against you?
Quite often.
Judge, can I approach the witness?
Yes, as long as you show it to the state first, please.
Defense attorney is approaching the witness box to show her some photographs.
Show you defense exhibit for identification P. It's 2 photographs. Could you look at those photographs and see if you recognize those?
I do.
Are those 2 pictures of your body?
Yes.
Did they show injuries to your body?
Yes.
Were those injuries caused by George Torres?
Yes.
Are those photographs a fair and accurate depiction of the injuries you sustained at the hands of George Torres?
On this occurrence, yes.
You remember this occurrence?
I don't. It was so often.
You don't remember a specific date,
I don't.
but you're sure that that's you?
Yes.
Is that the injuries that he? What's the injury to the rib cage?
I don't remember specifically. These may be the pictures. So, when we used to go over to his brother's house, one of his brothers and his.
Sustained.
Do you know what happened to? Did George cause these injuries?
Yes.
Were y'all both drinking at that time?
I don't remember on this instance.
Judge, I'd like to move this exhibit into evidence.
Okay. What was pre-marked as P will be received into evidence without objection as Defense Exhibit 2.
I'm not sure.
Mr. Owens, may I get into time just in a number, please? Thank you.
Mr. J, would you be so kind? Thank you.
And I need to ask permission to publish it.
Yes, sir. You may do so.
This is Marital, Judge.
A picture up on the screen showing an injury.
I think there's a
Sarah
wheel
Boone,
on the top where you can use to.
trying to her left arm. There seems to be at least three bruises on her left arm, allegedly caused by
Yes.
George Torres.
Are those injuries to your arm?
Yes.
Were they caused by George Torres?
Yes.
And during the same incident, is this you?
Yes.
Is that an injury or bruise to your rib cage area
Yes.
and your arm?
Yes.
I'll show you identification, defense identification Q. See if you recognize that photograph.
Yes.
Is that your thigh?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember this incident?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what happened?
I wanted to take my dogs for a walk and get off of the back porch.
Were y'all drinking?
Yes. And he was upset that I would rather go walk my dogs than sit there and continue to drink. So he slapped my thigh as hard as he possibly could and said that you're not going anywhere. And it was a good smack on my thigh.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the wound that you suffered as a result of George Torres slapping you on the thigh?
Yes.
Judge, I'd like to offer Q in evidence.
What was pre-marked as Q will be received into evidence without objection as defense 3. You may, sir.
And for the jury's sake, is this the photograph you just mentioned?
Yes.
Let's show you identification, defense identification S. See if you recognize that photograph.
I do.
Is that your hand?
Yes.
Is that your blood on your hand?
Yes, it is.
Is that you standing, looks like in a room with flip-flops?
This is in the kitchen at Brian's house.
Okay, what happened there?
So George was very drunk, and I wanted to leave, and he's notorious for taking my car keys and putting them around his neck and my phone in his crotch area and telling me to come get them. And I really wanted to leave because of how drunk, and I knew the escalation of his anger. I didn't want to be there when it was at its peak. So I tried to take my keys from around him because he kept taunting me to take my keys, come get your keys. And so I attempted to go and get my keys. And so he ended up getting a butcher knife. And I had an opportunity to call Brian to come and help me, to please come pick me up, to come get me. And of course, he brings my son with him. And so I'm in the parking lot asking Brian to please help me get my car keys away from him. And there's neighbors, and it's a scene at this point. And George comes to the doorway of my townhome wielding the butcher knife, saying that, do I curse? That no one's going to take her fucking keys. No one's going to fucking come into this house. And he's waving the butcher knife. And I walked up to him, and I just wanted to leave. And my little son, who was, I believe, 7 or 8 at the time, just is screaming, give mommy her keys, give mommy her keys, let her leave. Brian was even trying to negotiate with him, saying, please, you know she'll come back, just let her leave. So I went up to try and take the keys from him, and he was pulling on them, and I ended up pulling harder. And he pulled them back again to try to pull me in the house, and I pulled them even harder, and it ripped my finger. And at one point, I had lost the fingernail, and the tip of my pinky was severely gashed.
Judge, I'd like to offer this to the evidence.
Okay. What was it pre-marked as, Counselor?
Just like S, but metaphorically.
What was pre-marked as defense S will be received into evidence without objection as defense 4.
Ms. Boone, for the jury's sake, is this the picture you were referring to? Is that the nail, or is it on? Still on?
I believe so, yes.
So basically, the defense attorney showing all kinds of pictures of her having previous violent interactions with George Torres.
L, 2 photographs. Can you look at those photographs and tell the jury what they are?
I wanted to eat, and while he was drinking, went and made myself, as quickly as I possibly could, a microwave bowl of, I believe it was broccoli and cheddar soup. And I didn't get it out enough time, and he came up behind me and he slapped it out of my hand. And it was a 2nd-degree burn. I went to the hospital for it.
Are those fair and accurate depictions of the injury, the burn to your thigh?
Yes.
We'd like to offer identification L into evidence.
Okay. What was pre-marked as L will be received into evidence without objection as defense 5.
Permission.
Yes, sir.
You had to go to the hospital as a result of these injuries to your thigh?
Yes, it
Okay.
was extremely painful.
Is that a depiction of the burn?
Yes.
Is that your thigh?
Oh my God, yes.
And your knee?
Yes.
All right, I'm showing you composite exhibit for identification. Okay, 4 photographs. Did you look at those, all 4, before commenting? This is a longer story, isn't it? Go ahead and help.
So George stabbed me in my leg. I almost bled to death.
All right, well, let's go back and explain what led up to that.
I thought it would be nice to cook a nice steak dinner. We don't have 2 nickels to rub together, so I thought it would be special to make a steak dinner and make potato and go above the normal whatever's left over in the refrigerator. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, and George is drinking the entire time and on the back porch.
You were drinking as well, were you not?
I was drinking. He was on the back porch while I was in the house and I was cooking. And it was one of those where maybe if I start making dinner now, it will be over at a particular time and we can go to bed at a reasonable time. And I even put it in the bedroom and had a movie set up for us to watch. So it would just kind of be dinner in bed. And then he came upstairs and saw that I had made the steak dinner, and I don't know how to describe how drunk he was, but it definitely was not George. And had him come lay on the bed, sit on the bed, and, you know, put the, I got the dogs out, and I presented him with the steak dinner and sat down and was getting ready to start playing the movie. And he starts being very rude and cursing the steak and finding fault with it. And then, you know, I'm having to encourage him to eat. You know, if you want me to cut it up for you, I will cut it up for you. Did you want some more sour cream for your potato? What can I do to make you happier? And then he started to pull on me and kept saying that, excuse me, that I just want to fuck you on the steak and fuck you on the potatoes. And I took offense to that, and I kept trying to encourage him to eat. I started to eat.
Is this just him really drunk and saying nonsense?
I don't know why he was so angry that day. I don't know if it's because I got steak. I don't know. Most of the time I don't know the reason why. I couldn't take it anymore. Obviously, I was not going to be able to eat. So I started to crawl off of the bed to leave, just the bedroom. And he told me again that I'm not going anywhere, and he stabbed me in my leg, and it crunched. You could hear a noise that it made, and blood just started to come out of my leg, just like a fountain. So I got off of the bed. He's starting to freak out, and grabbed me a towel. I got a wet towel, and I'm sitting here holding the towel, and it's increasingly becoming even more and more saturated by the minute. It's just minutes. So I'm going through towels, and I said, George, I think I need to go to the hospital. This is not stopping to bleed. This is serious. And he got on his knees and begged me, please don't call the police. Please don't call the police. Please don't call the police. And inevitably, he went and got my car keys and put them around his neck again, and my cell phone. So I was not able to call anyone, and I wasn't able to leaving my car. So I figured I would just go downstairs, and I'm just going to go downstairs. And I had propped my foot up on the glass table that we had, and blood is just everywhere. Blood is everywhere. I can't keep up with the amount of blood, and I'm starting to feel very weak and really weird. And he comes downstairs and he's still begging me, please don't call 911. Please don't call 911. I kept telling him, there's something, this is serious. This is something. Because he knew that he would probably get arrested or something bad would happen to him. So I couldn't take him anymore. He was just all over me, and just, I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding very badly, and he's having me try to console him. And I kept telling him, please, I need to call 911, please. And I said, okay, just give me a moment. And I crawled upstairs to my son's bathroom, which is the furthest bathroom away from everything. And I remember holding onto the sink, and I looked into the mirror and my lips were blue. And I knew I needed help. I needed help. And he came upstairs looking frantic for me, calling my name. And then I turned to him and I said, please, I'm going to die. I've lost a lot of blood. There's something wrong. My lips are blue. Please, we don't have to call an ambulance. If you could just take me, I'll drive whatever I can do, please, to go to the hospital for this. And he said that before anything happens, I had to concoct a story in order for him to not be arrested or be in trouble when we did inevitably get to the hospital. So I'm sitting there with this blood-soaked towel with blue lips, trying to come up with a story of what I can tell them when I go down there so he's not in trouble, and telling him that it's okay. And I came up with the story of that we were sword fighting silly after drinking with our steak knives, and he accidentally punctured my leg. And from there...
How did you get to the hospital?
Originally, he told me to drive, and because of the amount of alcohol that he drank, and I couldn't. So he got into the driver's seat and drove me, and the entire time he's barking at me to make sure that I get the story straight. We're sword fighting, okay? We were drunk,
Did you go to
being
the
silly.
emergency room?
Yes.
All right, and did you get treated there?
Yes. I was bloody, and
All right, let me show you the photograph. I'll show you this.
Yes.
All right, is this a fair and accurate depiction of the injury to your leg?
Yes, I had to go to 2 different hospitals for it.
And you lied to medical personnel about how this happened?
Yes, they brought in sheriffs and everything.
Was it consistent with, they brought in sheriffs? Did you have to answer to the law enforcement officer?
Yes,
Did you stick with the story that you and George had agreed?
I did.
Judge, I'd like to offer this deposit zip.
Okay. What was pre-marked as K will be received into evidence without objection as Defendant 6.
Folks, at this point, I'm going to go away from this case. I mean, there's still going to be a whole, besides this presentation being done by the defense attorney, there's going to be an entire cross-examination by the prosecution. Everything she's saying, obviously, some of them, there's police reports, but we all question, like, if this type of violence, this type of drinking was going on, then, why did she stay with George Torres? And we see this in domestic violence cases all the time, that people that obviously don't belong together at all stay together because one thing or another, they're both drunks, alcoholics, whatever you want to say. But does this at all give a defense for what she ultimately did to George and locking him in that suitcase and failing to come to his aid? I will reconvene tomorrow. We will revisit this case after we see what the cross-examination was. But at this point, I'm going to end this show, and I want to thank everyone for coming by today. I know there's so many different YouTube content creators are covering this story right now. So, folks, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Have a great rest of your day, and God bless everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.